to the Fisdom Wealthcast. Like always, we are back with with an extremely special guest. With us, we have the CEO of Mirae Mutual Fund. We have Swarup Mohanty with us. He is one of the leading veterans in the financial services, especially asset management industry. So it gives me great pride and happiness to welcome Swarup on the show. Swarup, a very warm welcome.
No, Nirav, thank you for your generous words, but always such a pleasure doing this with you. It's been such a wonderful ride from the first time we've done, and I look forward to doing these sessions with you always.
थैंक्स अ लॉट स्वरूप सो स्वरूप पिछली बार जो हमने सेशन किया तब से लेके आज तक बहुत कुछ दुनिया में बदल चुका है राइट बट एक क्वेश्चन रिमेन्स स्टिल द सेम मार्केट क्या बोलता है इट वाज जस्ट यस्टरडे मार्केट्स सेंसेक्स ब्रीच 60,000 वी आर barely a couple of thousand points away from the record high there is exuberance there is worry there are concerns बट सवाल तब से लेके आज तक कॉमन है मार्केट क्या बोलता है तो आपके हिसाब से फ्रॉम योर स्टैंड पॉइंट मार्केट क्या बोलता है
देखिए मार्केट प्लेस इज एज सिमिलर और डिसिमिलर एज एनी अदर मार्केट इसीलिए उसको बाजार कहा जाता है मार्केट इज अ प्लेस वेयर अ बायर एंड सेलर मीट राइट समटाइम्स देयर आर मोर बायर्स देन सेलर्स तो मार्केट ऊपर चला जाता है समटाइम्स देयर आर मोर सेलर्स देन बायर्स तो मार्केट नीचे जाता है right? It is a demand and supply game which defines the price, and where the buyer and seller meet is the price, right? That is the fundamental of any market, and the stock market is no different. But when you look at what is happening in India, I thought, and हम पहले भी इस पे बात कर चुके हैं, it was something which was waiting for to happen. And अगर आप थोड़ा पीछे जाएं, and let's go to India pre-COVID, और वही बाजार देखें, बाजार was getting very polarized. तब सबके दिमाग में ये था कि ये 7-8 स्टॉक चल रहे हैं. India growth was coming down, and then COVID happened. I mean, and look at it. If you look at COVID as a singular instance, ऐसे मेरे मेमोरी में तो ऐसा कभी नहीं हुआ है कि पूरा वर्ल्ड का इकोनॉमिक जो इंजन है आप बंद कर दिए. ऐसा नहीं हुआ है. That the entire economic engine of the world has been put to a standstill, not for a day, but for 2 years, right?
Yeah.
Fairly large impact on world economic activities. अब अपने घर ही बंद कर दीजिए 2 साल तो उसके बाद आप खोलेंगे तो फेयर अमाउंट ऑफ मेंटेनेंस लगेगा ना ये पूरा वर्ल्ड की बात हो रही है जब खोलने लगा देन दिस वॉर हैपेंड एंड व्हेन दो बड़े इंसिडेंट्स आप एक साथ आते हैं तो इम्पैक्ट और थोड़ा ज्यादा होता है बट what happened to India during this COVID was pretty significant and post COVID जब हम देखें 2 years now almost or third year into COVID अब कोई भी डेटा पॉइंट उठा के लो at a macro or a micro level, from car sales to health insurance sale via petrol products and petrol at 100 rupees. Please keep that in mind. And via GST collection, आप कोई भी data point, power, whatever unit consumption, the data point is very strong. And 2 साल बाद when you look at this data, you can't say base कम था क्योंकि कोविड के बाद कुछ शुरुआत हुआ बेस भी ठीक ठाक है उस पर भी ग्रोथ चालू है पोस्ट कोविड India in emerging markets, based on these data points, is probably one of the fastest growing nations, right? Suddenly, in 2 years, from being one of a slowing down nation, you are a very fast growing nation. Because of what happened in the US, and let's face it, US inflation at 8-9%, there is no talent in the world, at least from the fund management industry worldwide. If you take Warren Buffett out, जो can predict what can happen at 9% US inflation, उनको खुद नहीं पता क्या होगा, right? So, and due to the war, oil prices कुछ इधर उधर हो गए थे. So, in an uncertain world, there was fair amount of certainty happening in India, which is a clear change from the earlier 2 years. So, due to the US inflation, there is definitely a flight to safety, and the people who were invested in non-dollar economies will rush back to own the dollar. Because dollar becomes the safest currency. So, कुछ पैसा वापस चला गया था. And it was waiting for that money to come back. And what was that trigger? मेरे हिसाब से at this moment, the ease of the oil prices or the commodity prices easing out could be one such trigger based on which the money came back. And around $3.5 billion have taken this market up because of the underlying data points of India. So though I am not very surprised as to this turnaround of the market, but I thought India was a story waiting to happen. And now we'll have to watch the story further. But it brings into the basic thing that आप बाजार में पैसा बनाते हो अगर आप बाजार में इन्वेस्टेड हो, बाजार के बाहर हो तो शायद बाजार 9 out of 10 times आपको सरप्राइज दे जाए जैसे अभी दिया है।
एब्सोल्युटली। सो द मोस्ट इम्पोर्टेंट पॉइंट बीइंग कि बाजार में रहना जरूरी है। आप बाहर से देखोगे तो यू विल नॉट रियली अंडरस्टैंड। एंड व्हेनेवर वी टॉक अबाउट द बाजार, राइट स्वरूप, एक जनरल एक धारणा होता है दैट वी टॉक अबाउट इक्विटीज, राइट, जनरली। काफी देखा गया है इंडस्ट्री में भी, लाइक व्हेन वी आल्सो इंटरैक्ट विद इन्वेस्टर्स, उनका एक ये मानना होता है कि जो म्यूचुअल फंड्स है वो केवल एक इक्विटी इन्वेस्टिंग का स्मार्टर रूट है, और जो उनका जो डेट कंपोनेंट होता है, जब भी हम एसेट एलोकेशन वगैरह की बात करते हैं, तो वो जो डेट होती है वो दे ट्राई एंड फाइंड मोर कन्वेंशनल प्रोडक्ट्स फॉर इट, ऑल्दो दे नो म्यूचुअल फंड्स आल्सो ऑफर इट, they don't seem to resonate very much with it, right? So they think that mutual funds are only for equities and ideal for equities only, but debt के लिए पता नहीं क्या किया जा सकता है म्यूचुअल फंड में, so people are very confused with it. At this point in time we present a multi-asset strategy, right? And as a mutual fund manager, and I also want to ask this because Mirae being one of the most fantastic fund managers across categories, right, we have seen the performance, the success speak for itself. आपने कई सालों के बाद ये एकदम से हॉट कैटेगरी में आपने रिसेंटली एंट्री किया है, जो कि एक डायनामिक एसेट एलोकेशन या बैलेंस्ड एडवांटेज फंड जिसे कहा जाता है। उसमें अलग अलग, उसमें डेट और इक्विटी को बहुत डायनामिकली मैनेज किया जाता है अकॉर्डिंग टू मार्केट, इकोनॉमिक साइकिल्स एक्सेट्रा। सो द फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन इज, आपने इस कैटेगरी में इतना लेट एंट्री क्यों किया? डू यू थिंक इट इज बिकॉज द पॉइंट राइट नाउ is very good? Was it a timing thing? And what are the prospects going ahead that an investor should bear in mind? Because अगर multi asset allocation करना है तो the easiest way to do it is through a fund like a balance advantage fund, any of it, right? So it's a two-pronged question, Swarup. What are your views on it?
Nirav, first part of the question is that, when you look at asset classes, typically in the capital market, the two broad asset classes are equity and debt. I don't blame the Indian thought process of putting debt a little behind when it comes to mutual funds, because आप अगर the investing universe देखें ना, the age, a bulk of this age now, the demography is changing, the young are coming in who do not know the fixed income or the fixed rate regime. Nirav, you are part of that, but my part of the generation has seen broad part of their investing career getting some fantastic returns from fixed rate regime, like RBI used to give good returns, post office, these were sovereign, okay, post office were giving good returns, banks were giving good returns. Ye fixed deposit jo tha was a very important part of debt. Slowly towards the later part of 90s or as we progressed into the 2000, this started dismantling. But इसका इतना बड़ा बैगेज है that it will take some time for people to get out of a fixed income or a fixed rate regime to a floating rate regime, and that is what we are witnessing. But if you see the last 3-4 months, and we are in a situation where the investor was practically spoiled for choice, right? आप खुद देखें, अगर 10 year आपका 10.7.4 7.5 चला जाता है और मेरा होम लोन भी 7.5 7.6 है, तो द सोवरेन रेटिंग इज ऑलमोस्ट इक्वल टू माय इंडिविजुअल रेटिंग। ये स्पेशल सिचुएशन हो जाता है, एंड इफ सम इन्वेस्टर कैन कैच दिस रेट ऑन द डेट साइड, अ लॉट कैन हैपन on the overall portfolio returns also. So to answer your question that whether we are an early entrant or a late entrant, we are by choice, because of us coming later into the mutual fund industry, a late entrant in most of the categories. We were after us, probably one or two tax funds have come or ELSS funds have come. We were probably the last aggressive hybrid fund which came to the market. Our mid cap came 3 years earlier. Yeah. And then, see, first of all, why should you launch a product from a mutual fund perspective? ये हमारी मिरे की फिलोसफी में बताता हूँ कि हम पहले फंड मैनेजर से पूछते हैं, कैन वी मैनेज दिस फंड? अगर फंड मैनेजर्स कॉन्फिडेंस दिखाते हैं तभी हम प्रोडक्ट लाते हैं। आज के डेट में भी, Nirav, there are so many categories जिसमें हम नहीं हैं. We don't have a multi-cap, we don't have a flexi-cap, and these are large categories, okay?
Yeah.
So maybe we'll launch them later on when we feel we are comfortable of that. So from a timing perspective, ऐसा कोई हमें पता भी नहीं होता कि बाजार ठीक होता है कि खराब होता है. But what has happened in this dynamic asset allocation category, or the BAF as we call it, is very, very interesting for me as an individual. And थोड़ा honestly बात कर रहा हूँ, don't take me otherwise.
Please.
I always feel that equity is for an investor to catch up the upside of the market,
Yeah.
right? So I was bringing my own risk profile to a product strategy, to be very honest, when I looked at equity products in the market. But over the last 4-5 years in particular, एक बड़ा सा segment निकल के आया है who want downside protection of the market also,
Yes. Yes.
right? And there is nothing right, nothing wrong in this entire process. There are
Yes.
people across risk framework, and everybody's risk profile is correct.
Yes.
And this category of dynamic asset allocation, or the BAF category, aims to give a good risk mitigated product output under various market conditions. And slowly, slowly, to my, I call it an unlearning process, that category of investors is fairly large.
Mm.
And when we asked ourselves, can we manage a fund in that category? The answer from both the equity and debt side was a resounding yes. So we got the product. Now we have got the product. Now यहाँ से एक जर्नी शुरू होती है where we create track record. और अगर हम ठीक ठाक ट्रैक रिकॉर्ड बना दे, तभी it will become a good fund for us. Like suppose all our funds are mid cap 3 years ago when we started, very small fund. Today, say what, I don't know how much but emerging blue chip, suppose the classic example that I always give, was an NFO of 23 crores.
Yeah.
Today, 24,000 crore fund. Like our hybrid 5 years ago was a 100 crore fund. Today is an 8,500 or almost 9,000 crore. That comes with building good track record, and that is what we will try to do, build good track record in this category. Yes, from a timing perspective, I feel personally, because of the good yields, the debt part of this product can also lock into some decent yields, which will give an advantage or an initial kicker to the portfolio. Of course, the equity side will be where the returns come from. But for a change, the debt side can also add a little bit to the portfolio because of the timing perspective. But ऐसे हमें ज़हन में नहीं था कि अच्छा timing है, खराब timing है. We came with the product. The situation in the market is fairly decent to start.
Absolutely. So, in Swarup, I completely, I was resonating with what you were saying when you said that, Mirae is amongst the later entrants in most categories and also absent in major categories. In fact, the fact that you're absent in major categories only makes me so much more excited and look forward to what are you going to do there, because एक हिंदी में कहावत है, right? देर आए दुरुस्त आए. I feel this is an understatement when it comes to Mirae. It is देर आए दुरुस्त से भी बहुत बेहतर आए.
नहीं, but please let me tell you, launching a product now is a very, very nervous time for me.
Oh, yes.
Starting a product is very easy, okay, but you have to build
Yes.
track record. Investor, suppose आपके बात से थोड़ा मैं अगर सहमत भी होता हूँ, हमारे बाकी फंड परफॉर्मेंस में देख के शायद इसमें कुछ आ जाए एक उम्मीद लेके, राइट?
Right.
But the person has to be given good investment experience
Yes.
for this investment, okay? And that responsibility shifts back to us. So it is nervous time when you launch a product, but थोड़ा track record बन जाता है, फिर we start breathing easily.
Absolutely. Like, completely well said. I realized that the highest form of burden is the burden of faith. When someone brings
Yeah,
their
yeah,
faith
absolutely.
to you, that's
Yeah.
that's quite a
So
burden that
see,
one needs to
mutual
hold.
fund per se is a business of trust, no? It is a trust
Yes.
business
Yes.
at a fundamental level. So creating trust takes years. You can break it in a minute.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel, at least on that front, I feel Mirae Asset has been doing superbly well and has been reciprocating the trust of so many investors. I feel it is also very evident in the performance, the way the asset sizes have grown. So, one need not really talk a lot about that. It's all there out in the open for the public to view. So, Swarup, when we were talking about several asset classes, you also said that आपके equity fund management side से, debt fund management side से एक resounding सा yes आया. So, my next question is coming from a context where people don't really understand fixed income. Okay, the mutual fund fixed income categories, it might be too complicated for people to understand. And they obviously love this entire fact of having a dynamically balanced asset allocation. They know करना चाहिए, debt pure उनको समझ में नहीं आता. They're willing to trust the fund house with it, right? And they appreciate the fact that you can't have a sports car without great suspensions, right? So that is the suspension, and you have equity, the sports car, which gives you the
Perfect.
torque, right? But जब भी आप ये fund manage करते हो at a higher level, how do decide how to switch between allocations between the two products. I'm sure the equity fund management is going to do great on the equity side, debt will do great on the debt side, but how does Mirae decide at what point in time कितना equity में exposure होना चाहिए और कितना debt में exposure होना चाहिए?
So I think the beauty of not only us, most of these dynamic asset allocation funds in the market is सबके एक basic एक rule होती है, and it's a very disciplined, rule oriented kind of a fund category. What happens is when you have a rule is that these think कि ये market में थोड़ा मैं रुक जाता हूँ, the human element which is taken away, and hence the discipline of addressing the portfolio comes in. Ours are as a very simple philosophy. We believe in roots and fruits. अगर कोई पेड़ का roots अच्छा हो तो उसके fruits अच्छे होते हैं, right? It's a combination of price to book to price to earnings. If your balance sheet is good, the earnings will be good, right? So that's a very simple, what can I say, rule which has been set in place, and that I would request all investors to first check that before investing in the fund. So it takes away this basic thing that the human element of being subjective on the market. So I am a big passionate believer of rule based investing. Even in my portfolio I have a very set rule कि ये मेरा asset allocation है, इस दिन review करूंगा, कुछ भी है तो मैं rebalance कर दूंगा. And then even in the aggressive hybrid, someday maybe we should talk about it separately. The rebalancing or the yearly rebalancing of the hybrid over the 5-6 years, the kind of alpha it has generated goes unnoticed, right? That is what a periodic rebalance does to any portfolio. So that is the beauty, and I'm saying this not only for us, but all BAFs probably definitely come with their own back model, and this model plays. Once the model plays, then the fund manager on the timing of the market takes a backseat. So once there is a certain P at a certain level, the model takes over, or if it's a bit of a combination. Plus, the only thing is we've kept 3% leeway of the portfolio to our fund managers, and that's where we would like to bring our own fund management expertise to the model, and that is to the extent of 3%. So a combination of a model plus 3% makes it fairly disciplined. And when this discipline is played out over a period of 5-10 years, the impact on the portfolio is definitely to be seen in the coming times.
Absolutely. Swarup, when you spoke about the roots and fruits thing, I feel this is something that I will personally also use in a lot of our conversations, because I absolutely love the concept. For a very long time, I was using a relatively, negative sort of a statement that we had learned in computer science is GIGO, right? Garbage in, garbage out. If you put bad stuff, you get bad stuff. I feel this is a much better way of saying if you put good stuff,
No,
you'll get
but
good.
when we came up with this thought, it was so simple and so powerful. अगर पेड़ के अच्छे रूट्स नहीं है तो पेड़ कैसा वो खड़ा रहेगा, फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल. सेकेंडली, न्यूट्रिशन कहाँ से आएगा? अगर अच्छे रूट्स हैं तभी तो अच्छे फल आएंगे.
Yes.
So that was this combination of price to book to price to earn.
And makes complete sense, right? If you don't pay attention to the roots, to the nutrition, अब बाकी पेड़ उगने के बाद अब उस पे चाहे जो छाट लीजिए, फल नहीं आने
कुछ नहीं,
वाला, right?
बिल्कुल नहीं
And
आएगा.
कुछ नहीं. So in fact, Swarup, when we talk about asset allocation, another very important perspective during, एक तो हो जाता है आपका asset classes के हिसाब से, ठीक है, आपका equity, debt, gold, real estate. We'll get into that separately later. But at the same time, I want to address another very popular dilemma that investors face is domestic assets versus international assets. This is also a way to slice it, right? And whenever we talk about this, we are talking in equity parlance. तो काफियों का ये मानना है कि अब जहां पे भी देखे लोग कहते हैं कि इंडिया इज रिकवरिंग रियली स्ट्रांगली, एंड द प्रोस्पेक्ट्स ऑफ द इंडियन इकोनॉमी, इंडियन मार्केट्स इज लाइक हाईली प्रॉमिसिंग, और इस पे एक ऑलमोस्ट एक यूनानिमस व्यू है. इंडस्ट्री, मीडिया, चाहे जो भी रिप्रेजेंटेटिव्स है, सभी का यही मानना है. तो इन्वेस्टर्स का एक ये बहुत बड़ा डिलेमा आ जाता है, जो हमें भी लोग पूछते हैं कि अगर आप इंडिया पर इतने बुलिश हो तो इंटरनेशनल इन्वेस्टिंग के लिए क्यों आप सजेस्ट करते हो, अगर करते हो तो, एंड व्हाट पॉइंट डज इट मेक टू डाइवर्सिफाई इनटू इंटरनेशनल एसेट्स इफ वी आर एनीवे श्योर ऑफ इंडियन इक्विटी इज आउट परफॉर्मिंग मोस्ट ऑफ इट इन द लॉन्गर टर्म. सो इस पे आपके क्या व्यूज है ऑन दिस form of asset allocation?
I think 2-3 questions, and I am on print saying that sell India at your own risk. So I am a firm believer that one has to stay invested in India. and India is a good growth story, and it in the next 10-15 years is a secular growth story. There is no denying or debating that. But when you come to the capital market, it is a fact that you are just 3% of the global market.
Yeah.
Right, you are just participating to the extent of 3% of the total market of the world. Right, 97% of businesses are outside India, which are available for you to buy on the stock market. Point number one. India is an emerging market, and hence the businesses that are in India are of a certain level or certain style. In developed economies, the businesses have become very different. So when you look at diversifying, forget global markets. When you want to form a portfolio aiming to catch different businesses of the world, there are businesses which are at a different stage in their cycle, which are available only globally.
Mm.
Some of those businesses are not available for India. I mean, you can check that out for the sake of not taking any stock name. But it's very easy to figure out which businesses are in India, which businesses are not in India. So it adds that beautiful blend of owning various types of businesses if you go outside India. Third most important point I feel is all our lives are changing, right? And we have enough non rupee currency spending in our lives. When we travel, we use various currencies. Today, most of the kids are studying abroad. My son is studying in India, just for clarification. But let me give you a data. I still don't know any parent around me, any parent whose kid is in India. So that payment is not paid in rupees. So when we are slowly building non-rupee spending, it is very important to also have non-rupee assets to balance that out, right? So
Yeah.
our lives are changing. Our पहले तो ये हमें accessible ही नहीं थे.
Yes.
Now,
Yes.
lot of those products are also accessible to us. Yes, then it brings to the basic fundamental factor is that please understand those markets are very different. Those market, the nuances of that market or the volatility of that market are completely different to India. So first and foremost, yes, based on these factors, मेरे हिसाब से allocation बनता है because you are getting differentiated economies, differentiated businesses, different sizes of businesses. Just give you an example. Suppose that S&P 500 top 50, those 50 stocks make up almost 45-47% of the global market cap.
Yeah.
And none of those 50 companies are in India.
Right. Correct.
While if you take those 50 companies, your day-to-day usage is of those companies. Right? So that is, it's not that those companies are not known to us. But you are, by owning those 50 companies, you are getting almost 40-45% of the world market.
Mm.
Right? So, and that product is available to you at a very nominal cost.
Mm.
Then how much to own will define your comfort in those assets because those assets will behave very differently.
Yeah.
Large companies can go down 40% in 1 or 2 days.
Yeah.
Whether we are equipped to handle those volatility or not. Right,
Yeah.
some of us have upgraded ourselves because of the last 2-3 years of volatility because from purely the SIP numbers I can say very happily that we are remaining invested in the market and riding the volatility to our benefit. So those nuances we have started to understand about equity investing, right?
Yeah.
But it is at a different level globally. So the getting used to that will take some time. So allocation banta hai. How much to allocate will depend on your comfort with those assets and those kind of behavior. So start in some form where you can probably the way you started in Indian equities long time back
Yeah.
and start graduating to build an asset. I am a firm believer that allocation banta hai purely on merits of those balance sheets. And sometimes not owning those balance sheets can be a wealth dampener more often than not. So if you want a good, strong portfolio build for the future, global investing is a definite part. But how much to allocate depends on various people, their risk profile, and overall asset allocation plan. Coming back to the fact that India will grow, but India is still 3% of the global market as we speak.
Absolutely. I feel, Swarup, there were two so important points that really hit me hard. One was if your spendings are non-INR, why should your assets be only INR based. I feel it really strikes a chord today. Many of our viewers, if you also reflect and think about it, most of our spendings or aspirational spendings that we would want to achieve in our life,
True.
a large part of it constitutes spending in non-INR, right? So that is there. So it makes all sense to allocate there as well, right from education abroad to perhaps vacations abroad to businesses abroad. I feel there's a whole lot of sense to diversify there. And one another thing that I realized, that opportunities need not be limited by boundaries. I mean, if
Absolutely.
you made such an important point that for a very long time we did not even have access to these companies, right? And these are companies which we also know back here. घर पे बैठे बैठे हम इनके बारे में बात करते हैं कि ये देखिए ये कितना बड़ा कंपनी हो गया, अगर फोन खरीदना है तो हमें इनमें से ही एक
No,
कंपनी का
from the phone to the toothpaste we use, we are using
एवरीथिंग
all of them. All of them.
यूजिंग ऑल ऑफ दैम। और बाई चॉइस करते हैं, हम प्रेफर भी करते
Correct.
हैं उसे। तो जब हम इतना प्रेफर करते हैं और हमारे पास अपॉर्चुनिटी है जो कई सालों तक नहीं था, कई सालों तक इंडियन मार्केट्स और इंडियन पार्टिसिपेंट्स एट अ लार्ज स्केल वंचित रहे इस अपॉर्चुनिटी से। आई फील
बिल्कुल।
नाउ द टाइम व्हिच हैज मेड लाइफ सो मच मोर simpler to participate in this. It is just amazing. And when we are talking about assets, और आपने इसके बारे में बात किया, तभी I realized that ग्लोबल कॉन्टेक्स्ट में जब भी बात करते हैं इन सबको मिलाते हुए, there is one common thread across global markets when it comes to assets, and that is gold, right? A global
Correct.
commodity, everyone, right? So I feel this entire discussion of global investing and global asset classes would be थोड़ा सा अधूरा अगर आप गोल्ड पे आपके पर्सपेक्टिव शेयर नहीं करते। तो प्लीज जस्ट ब्रीफ ऑन व्हाट डू यू फील अबाउट गोल्ड एज
Nirav,
एन
I
एसेट।
think gold for an Indian is probably the best known asset class. We're probably the ninth or tenth generation of gold investing. So globally, there is no individual across the world which associates higher with gold than anybody, right?
Yeah.
So gold is typically owned in two ways. One is the jewelry, which is there in everybody's house. And I come from the East. एंड हमारे यहाँ तो एफिनिटी थोड़ा ज्यादा ही है. आई ऑलवेज मेक दिस जोक दैट इन माय यंगर डेज the amount of gold I as a guy I used to wear, I could give Bapilari a run for his money, because our social status is the amount of gold we own in everybody's family, right?
Yeah.
And I think we've from gold investing comes very deep understanding of fundamental rules of investing. Gold we buy one day in a year.
Yes.
I mean, an advisor like you, probably 7 generations ago, had given us a date, Akshay Tritiya or
Yeah.
Dhanteras, as we call it. That's the SIP date for gold for all Indian buyers. And it's a commodity, right? On that day, without checking, let me tell you, that would be the costliest day
Yeah.
of gold for that year. But we don't care because हमें तो खरीदना है, right?
Yes.
फिर हम खरीद लेते हैं और every year उसको SIP के तरीके से खरीद रहे हैं. So we've been
Yes.
accumulating that over the years.
Yes.
So that means accumulation is perpetual, rule number one, because you are participating, right? Rule number two is typically when it comes to capital markets investing, SIPs 1 year, 2 year, 5 year, कुछ perpetual अभी दिखने लगे हैं, right? कुछ goal based अभी दिखने लगे हैं. But वो तो SIPs over the generations. My grandmother used to buy, my mother is buying. I hope my son doesn't buy. वैसा करके एक generation से चल रहा है. So we have seen over a period of time, when you identify a good asset class and you continuously buy it, wealth is created.
Yes.
So you associate and you do, and then there is this thing that with gold now you don't sell it.
Yeah. No one.
That is your
Gold
last
is the
resort.
last asset you ever sell.
कि तेरे ये दिन आ गए तू सोना बेच रहा है, कर क्या रहा है यार, people will tell you, right? So when you're going out to sell gold, means every resort is gone, and that is your last resort. Now you put these three principles of investing to any good asset class, you are bound to create wealth. But reflect that behavior when it comes to equity. Bazaar kya lagta hai? While I'm telling you that on that Dhanteras day, it is the most expensive day of that year, nobody will even ask you kya baat kar raha hai. Buy 7 days later, you'll get it cheaper.
And everyone knows it is expensive. It's not that they don't know. Everyone knows.
But they're ingrained that if I keep on holding it, no, I'll make money. People say you've made money in real estate. The time frame on an average will be 20, 30 years.
Yes.
My father had bought this piece of land at this price. Today it is this. My father had bought it 30 years ago. Please keep 30 years in your mind.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
But when it comes to equity markets, because of the transparency of the equity markets, we tend to discuss it at a far shorter sort of time frame, but it is changing, and
Yeah.
it's changing very fast, and I'm seeing the change post COVID to be dramatic, and that only augurs well for wealth creation in the capital markets for Indians. And I do believe the young will take it up far differently the way than we guys took it, and that will only see, it's our market, our country will create money, it is our market, we should own it. Why are FIs owning it this much? But
Yeah.
thanks to SIP books, we have started owning our market, and that's such a wonderful thing to see. So coming back to gold, is that it is a very good hedge, right?
Yeah.
But it's a hedge.
Yeah.
Creating wealth will happen in the asset class of the times. There was a time for gold when the kings and queens were there and they used to rely on jewelry as their wealth. Now it is not part of the jewelry. Take the
Yeah.
top 2,000 people of the world, take the top 5,000 people of the world. Their valuation is based on the amount of equity they have in the market, which is their own company. The number
Yes.
of shares they own into the value of that share is their valuation. So the asset class of today for wealth generation, whether pre-IPO or post-IPO, is equity.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
so though gold is a hedge, it is good to have a hedge, some part of the portfolio. But going forward, the asset which will create wealth, and which the top rich people know how to create wealth, and it's not rocket science to understand that from them. So take the ride with them, no, and you will create wealth.
Absolutely, absolutely. I feel it was such a novel way that you linked up investing principles to gold, and what magic can be created अगर हमने same principles को equity investing में भी apply किया. I feel it was so spot on. मतलब this was a very novel approach to me, because although we know gold is a hedge वगैरह वो सारा तो पता ही होता है, but ये कभी समझा नहीं कि ये क्यों किया जाता है. और ये जब our earlier generations made a lot of wealth from gold, it's not because they made the wealth from gold, it is because they followed these principles with a certain asset class that happened
Discipline,
to be gold. That happened to be
discipline.
gold.
The
Absolutely.
discipline that we bought to real estate buying, the discipline that कोई बोलेगा कि अरे प्राइसेस करेक्ट कर गए तो घर बेच दे, will anybody sell?
No,
इसे क्या बात
no.
कर रहा है यार, ऐसा कोई करता है क्या? But
Right.
prices करेक्ट गया, equity base, but that is changing. If you look at it
Yes.
now, people are finding value for the price and are
Yeah.
buying into price, which is a complete shift from what used to happen in India 5 years ago.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Absolutely. In fact, talking about novelty, Swarup, I also have to ask you one thing. Mirae has typically, जैसे आपने कुछ देर पहले कहा था कि बहुत बड़े-बड़े कैटेगरीज है जहाँ पे मिराई के फंड्स नहीं है, जैसे कि मल्टी कैप, फ्लेक्सी कैप, वो सबको जरा साइड पे रखते हुए, I also want to bring to forth that Mirae is amongst the top AMCs who bring out the most innovative themes and give investors access to the most mind-blowing, fantastic, innovative themes. Like for instance, the most recent आपका एक access आपने चालू किया to invest in the electric vehicle story.
Correct, correct.
आपके दो ये रहे, एक इलेक्ट्रिक व्हीकल स्टोरी और एक एआई टेक्नोलॉजी स्टोरी पे आपका एक दूसरा fund raha hai. So these two are really novel ideas. Could you just give us a brief about how is this EV fund structured and how is this AI tech? I use these two साथ में because ये साथ में ही launch हुए थे, ये साथ में ही पढ़े थे. So if you can split your answer into these two, what's happening
Yeah.
with the EV story and the AI story?
So before I come to that story, let's look at how investing is happening globally. Okay, while
Yeah.
India as an Indian investor, because we are an emerging market, our broad outlook on investing in equity is still the large cap, mid cap, small cap way.
Right.
We equate sector investing to thematic investing, while they are completely different. But
Yes.
when you look at, say, especially the US for the last decade has graduated from large cap, mid cap, small cap investing to first thematic investing. Then within that big trend themes which emerge from those themes. Just 2021, there have been more than 430 thematic funds launched in the US or across the world. So that is how big thematic investing is now. We in the US are represented by Global X, which is one of the early proponents of thematic investing. Their lithium fund is more than a decade old. And then we place ourselves as a good thematic asset manager there. And you can track Global X as one of the best thematic players, and they identify themes ahead of time. Now, at Mirae Asset India, we do play both active and passive. Through the active management, we try to bring the broad market funds. Through passive, we try to give you good Indian. We've created some indices ourselves also. But when it comes to the global markets, and since we have an expertise, we take this route to give you some of the good products which are available there to Indian investors through the through the route of these fund of funds. And if you look at two themes like which you mentioned, EV and AI, our fundamental belief is these are two disruptive themes for the future where practically all products will be impacted by these two themes. क्लाइमेट चेंज इज अ रियलिटी एंड इन इंडिया अगर 10,000 ईवी व्हीकल बिक रहे हैं इसलिए कि 10,000 ही मैन्युफैक्चर हो रहे हैं.
Right.
अगर 20,000 मैन्युफैक्चर होते तो 40,000 भी बिकते. अ फ्रेंड ऑफ माइन बहुत मेहनत करके बॉट अ हाई एंड जर्मन कार, माय फ्रेंड इन कैलकाटा. तो उसने फिर पूछा, उसका भांजे ने पूछा कि विच कार डिड यू बाय, एंड ही सेड कि ये गाड़ी मैंने खरीदा. फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन, यंग लड़का, इज इट इलेक्ट्रिक? He said no. Then he said, how does it matter? That's how the world is changing, right?
Yeah.
It's a thought which my son also believes, that you have to commit to energy in a big way. We are
Yes.
aware of the impact of energy across us. मेरे बिल्डिंग में अभी एक ईवी का वो क्या कहते हैं, that
Station, charging station.
it's no longer something which is very far away. In the
Yeah.
last 3 years, EV has come very close. When you look at, and that's the thing I wanted to say, when you look at EV as a theme, आपके सामने एक गाड़ी दिखता है,
Yeah.
बट बैकएंड में एक बैटरी है, एक मैन्युफैक्चरर है, उसके एंसिलरीज है. सो इट्स नॉट जस्ट द कार. When we launched consumption 10 years ago in India as a theme on our active side, it was practically FMCG. जब मैं चालू किया अपना करियर इन म्यूचुअल फंड्स इन द लेट 90s, द पोर्टफोलियोज यूज्ड टू रीड बैंक्स, फिर बैंक कॉमा एनबीएफसी, बैंक कॉमा एनबीएफसी कॉमा फाइनेंशियल्स. नाउ इट इज बैंक कॉमा एनबीएफसी फाइनेंशियल्स फिनटेक. You are part of the gang now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
a theme unfolds. It is very important to catch a theme in the beginning. Like 3 years ago when we launched healthcare on the active side, it was practically pharma. Today it is no longer pharma.
Yeah.
You try going out running in the morning with one simple shoe, people will laugh at you. It's not running. It's an attire. It is a music here. There's a different
Yeah.
kind of. So it's a full gamut which is coming to you, and you will see how healthcare will go forward. The point I'm making is both these themes, whether EV or AI, artificial intelligence runs our life now.
Yeah.
Whether it's from chatting on your WhatsApp to any movie you see online, whether it's just browsing on the internet to going to choose any product on any platform. They are tracking you. They are suggesting products which are right for you. And there is a back-end working, which is there in the subconscious. Let me tell you, the subconscious is probably the most powerful thing that can run anywhere. And hence, when you put these two basic themes, these are not small things, number one. Some of the themes are already entered our life, we know it. Hence, going forward in the next 5-10 years, there'll be no product which will not be impacted by energy or will not be impacted or governed by artificial intelligence. Makes them two very powerful themes of the future. All of us know it. And
Yes.
we have some exciting funds with some exciting track record in the past. And this is a very simple way of getting them to the fund of fund route. So we are very happy to be partnering our own company, Global X, in the US and bringing their products. And there is enough literature available in the market. But, when it comes to thematic investing, the best thing that can happen, these are diversified portfolios.
Yeah.
You think of where all AI can work, the list of where it cannot work might be very small.
Yes. Yes.
AI plays everywhere. So these are no longer a sector. That's where I'm differentiating between a sector and a theme. Theme are very broad. And they can seep into any part of our life. Right?
Yes.
So, one, the good part is these are diversified, number one. The quality or the type of businesses they can impact are phenomenal. So you are buying the future, and the key is to get into it early and ride along the growth of the theme. And that's not applicable only to these two things, but applicable to anything. And that's why we at Mirae Asset are a big fan of thematic investing. Even in India, on the active side, we have the three broad themes, which is banking, healthcare, consumption, right? As the three pillars of Indian economy, and they are playing out as we speak. Similarly, futuristically, globally, EV and AI will play out, and it's a good time to participate in that. I would request people to look at them. If they find them suitable, participate. And once you get comfortable with the themes, then you can start building your own book in that. But it'll be, I always say this, that, there is a risk to investing, there is an equal risk to not investing. So there is a risk to investing in EV and AI, but there is an equal risk to not investing in these two large dreams. So how much you invest is your call, but these are fairly long-term investing horizons. So think of the horizon, but participating का तो एक story बनता है, is what I feel.
Absolutely. I feel, it is very underrated, this entire concept of access to such beautiful themes,
True.
people, underrate it a lot. I feel we don't really acknowledge the fact that, it is not many years back that we absolutely had zero access to such products,
True.
right? हम सभी को पता है कि ईवी एआई ये दिस इज द फ्यूचर वी कीप टॉकिंग अबाउट इट in transit on the dinner table, we are all talking about it, we are all feeling it, right? And now that when we have an opportunity to participate in it, it's really a question about how many board the train and how many let it pass. I feel that's some very interesting there's some very interesting stuff that's going to happen in both these spaces. I also track them personally on an individual basis as sectors alone. There's amazing potential. I feel you made a very important point that there's going to be hardly any aspect of our life that AI does not touch upon in the future. That's where it's all headed in one form or another. I feel that's fantastic, Swarup. So as we move towards the end, there are just so many questions that people are asking. I want to quickly get into it so that I at least pick up as many as I can before we run out of time. So Swarup, one question, almost mandatory question. When we talk about asset classes, what are your views on investing in real estate as an asset?
See, actually, I was very fortunate to read Robert Kiyosaki very early in my life, right? He differentiated between a house and a real estate. Okay. He said that the house you stay in is your house and it is not exactly an asset. When you
Yes.
invest in the second one, that becomes your asset, right? Because it can give you some income. And he's very simple in saying that an asset is something which gives you income. A
Yeah.
liability is one which takes away money from your pocket. And the house you stay in definitely takes away money from your
Yes,
pocket. Right?
absolutely.
So I'm a firm believer in that. So I own one house. I've gone through this entire process of trying to, invest in real estate, but it's a very long-term asset class, right? And the returns when you look at it are there. But when I look at financial assets, and as we graduate from an investing segment which moves from fixed assets to financial assets, I personally found more merit in owning financial assets, primarily because it's very liquid. आप एक घर ओवरनाइट बेच के दिखाओ मुझे, मैं भी मानू, इवन इन अ मार्केट लाइक मुंबई विच इज अ वेरी हॉट रियल एस्टेट मार्केट, बिक जाता है. बट व्हेन लोग कहेंगे कुछ प्राइस, बट जब आपके हाथ पे प्राइस लगेगा, मे नॉट बी द प्राइस विच पीपल टेल यू टू बी,
Yeah.
राइट? So it comes with its own nuances, but broadly, India is a country where the broad part of real estate earnings is definitely behind you. And now the journey will be very different from the past, though as a house we believe that real estate has made a comeback, and we feel in the next 4 5 years is a good time for real estate, because for 2 years people have not spent money, they've kept aside money for the down payment of the house, the interest rates have become conducive, and the prices have also corrected. So at a certain price every asset is good, but be a little cognizant of that price. If you are getting a good price, you must keep real estate, because core asset class of the country, no doubt about that. Again, bringing that same virtue of asset allocation creates money, over allocation can kill money. Most of Indians are a little over allocated there, and that is getting shifted post COVID, post demonetization. There's distinct shift to financial assets, and that's my personal opinion. I don't own real estate, to be very honest. I don't own a second house, so the house I stay in is my need. But for me, money making is now on the financial asset side.
Okay, great, wonderful. Another question is, I have landed up maybe over allocating to mid and small caps. I have more than 60% allocated to mid and small caps. I am a long-term investor, but should I be worried? What could the worst case scenario look like?
See, I think there is nothing called over allocation, under allocation. If you are comfortable, or see, your over allocation, under allocation comes with the basic question. If you are worried, means you are over allocated, right? You cannot take away the merits of mid cap. I will reserve my comments on small cap because we don't have a fund there, so it's not right for us to comment on small caps. I'm just giving that basic understanding here. But when you look at COVID as an impact, and COVID is a severe impact on all businesses. Our house view is post COVID, there is a fair amount of what can I say, security in large businesses. It's an advantage large businesses, advantage large automated businesses. Some of these small balance sheets will be tested because the demands and everything have changed. The large businesses can buy out some of the smaller business. That's what is happening globally. It could happen in India. So when you are invested in a mid cap portfolio, and that is where I personally believe that the manager becomes more important, because stock picking is what defines a good mid cap portfolio over a not so good mid cap portfolio. So when it comes down market cap beyond 150 stocks, some these balance sheets need to be scrutinized and the expertise of the manager comes to the fore. So if you are over allocated, the markets will give you a time to exit and correct your. That's why the review and rebalance is very important. But in the next 10-15 years, a good manager in the mid cap space will give you good risk adjusted return. So choose your manager carefully. Once you found a good manager, I would definitely propagate staying with that manager over a long period of time. But if you are unhappy with your manager, then you need to take a call.
Yeah, and just another side note, because I come from this side of the business, you need to have some really good reason to be unhappy with your manager. Please do not judge fund managers basis, short-term performance. It is a very wrong lens. I've been tracking
Nirav,
funds for
I will put it the other way. If I am convinced with a good manager, no, I will give him more money during his bad days, his or
yeah,
her bad days.
absolutely. I feel
Because
fantastic.
you
That was
can't,
the way to go.
they say, no, form is temporary, class is
Yeah, yeah,
permanent,
yeah.
whatever,
Yes, yes,
whatever that.
yes.
A good manager in the bad days, no,
Yeah,
stick by that person, but you have to have a reason for defining a good
yes,
manager and a bad manager.
yes.
Sometimes people get disillusioned by 1 year return. It's not
Yeah,
fair to look at people in a 1 year return
yeah,
perspective.
yeah. So, guys, like one thing I can tell you with a fair deal of confidence, I won't say it is absolutely incorrect, but it is very far from being correct if you select your funds and fund managers by sorting by returns for any period whatsoever. Please do not do
Absolutely.
that. Please do not
Especially
do that.
1 year return.
Oh yeah, especially 1 year returns, right? So on a lighter note, I also see people sorting for 3 months return because they want to invest only for 3 months, right? This has come up as a reason, guys. It doesn't work that way. I can share more about it on a separate discussion, but please don't do that. At least, obviously, the team here is there. I know there are many questions. I'm not taking all of them right now. You can write to us at research@fisdom.com. We'll try to respond to it. If there's anything that we could seek help from the Mirae team, we would reach out to them and try and get your response to you. We try to do that. But today, in the interest of time, we'll have to move towards the close of the session today. Swarup, this brings us towards the end of this so insightful conversation. If you would have noticed, I've been really smiling all this time. This has started paining because of just so many revelations and the beautiful way in which you elaborate upon topics. I absolutely love the way you do it, Swarup. And like I was telling you, even before the call, I was super excited. And, right now I feel like, you have given me much more than what I was looking forward to. I'm so grateful that you took the time out and you actually, shared everything that you had to.
No, thank you, Nirav, for the opportunity. Always such a pleasure to come and share experiences with you. We go back learning every time, and it's a journey which all of us take together. Investing is not easy, and my humble request to all our listeners is, it is your money. study more about the money, where it is getting invested, and if you don't take care of your money will not take care of you. So spend some more time in understanding where you are investing, the risks associated with with the investing. It might start off as a return generating journey. Eventually, it's a journey of risk. Understand the risks involved. If you understand the risks involved, you will be a better investor.
Absolutely. I feel that, there was, this was a mic drop moment. You just put it so aptly, and, you just made the biggest point across towards the end. I'm so glad you shared that, Swarup. It's a pleasure hosting you as always.
Thank you. Really a pleasure, Nirav. Thank you. Really appreciate. Bye bye.
Thank you.